Sources confirm a 7-year-old brought a loaded gun to school, but police are unable to question him about it.
Is the school supposed to be safe?
A closer look at laws preventing police from getting answers from accused offenders, as parents fear for their kids' safety. Then the specific changes some lawmakers and prosecutors are pushing for to address juvenile crime statewide.
We've got to look at services. We've got to look at options.
The cost of Maryland's blueprint for education has leaders sounding the alarm.
We're struggling with Kerwin.
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore looks at the calls for action directed at the governor. Nearly 2 years later, justice for the family of a murdered restaurant manager. We talk with the community about what a guilty plea in the case means to them.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. New data from Baltimore police is highlighting a violent weekend across Baltimore.
The surge in juvenile crime is leading to calls for action from lawmakers, some calling from within the General Assembly itself.
I think this issue particularly has gotten so bad that everybody's started to feel it in their own communities, that they're going to be on the same page largely. It's really at a boiling point for us.
Somebody needs to take the charge for this. You know, these kids need to be held accountable because they doing adult things.
Well, today, Baltimore police released details on several recent juvenile crime incidents. 15 young people have been arrested for various crimes in the past 5 days across nearly half of the city's police districts. In the Northern District, yesterday, 7 juveniles were arrested for car theft, the youngest just 12 years old. Police say one of at 10:30. In Montgomery County, a 12-year-old was accused of making 7 school threats in a 3-week period in October. He allegedly told police he knew he wouldn't face charges because of the state's laws.
Parents, police, and prosecutors have been complaining about juvenile crime for months, calling for accountability for young people. State Delegate Nino Mangione joins us on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock today. He says lawmakers need to listen to those calls.
As an elected official, number one priority, an obligation to push policies that result in more public safety. And there's no better message to send to potential would-be juvenile criminals than prepare to pay the price. You're no longer getting away with it.
One lawmaker is calling for patience, saying these juvenile crime laws haven't been in place long enough to see their full impact. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost spoke to a state's attorney and delegate today who says the state can't afford to wait until January.
Some prosecutors are calling for a handful of changes to the current juvenile justice laws. But right now, the public has yet to see plans from Democrats in charge or the governor to address these concerns. Another armed robbery
for Eastern and Patterson, possible armed robbery
near Patterson Park in Baltimore last week, where the suspects.
The victim is claiming that the 4 juveniles, high schoolers, dressing all black, went towards the park. They utilized a handgun.
Are juveniles. More examples of what we've been hearing from people all across the state.
Guns, carjackings, motor vehicle thefts. They've exploded.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy has been at the forefront of the prosecutors' push for change.
We've got to look at services. We've got to look at options. We've got to look at more flexibility for probation.
In Annapolis, Senator Will Smith chairs the powerful Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. Last week, indicating he's not on board with a full repeal of the 2 laws at the center of the juvenile crime crisis debate. One, preventing kids 13 and younger from facing nonviolent misdemeanor charges, and the other, requiring an attorney to be present during questioning of juveniles by law enforcement. Smith says the juvenile justice laws need more time to see the full results.
Laws that we put in place are going to take a couple of years to fully see the fruit of the foundations that we've laid and the seeds that we've planted. I, for one, am not interested in rolling back the reforms that we put in place last year.
McCarthy says he understands the idea behind the plans and agrees a full repeal may not be necessary. But McCarthy says there are specific changes he wants to see made and hopes Senator Smith will be on board.
Let us review all felonies. Let's address this probationary, some of these artificial limitations, give some faith back to the judges. And I do think we are going to have a greater presence in Annapolis this year than we've had in years gone.
It seems like the issue's gotten so bad that I feel that there's going to be some sort of reform passed.
Delegate Robin Grammer, a Republican from Baltimore County, sits on the House Judiciary Committee, and he's been pushing for bigger changes and says the 2 previous committee hearings this fall have been beneficial, but it's time to see action.
People have to, frankly, stop playing so close to the chest and start having real discussions about this issue.
With just over a month until the next General Assembly session begins, lawmakers are running out of time to get a plan together before the first bell rings. That House committee hearing is scheduled to take place next Tuesday afternoon, and it'll happen in person. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
That brings us to our question of the day. What do you want your elected leaders? Do you want your elected leaders to hold young kids accountable? So far, 99% of those who voted say yes. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Well, crime is expected to be a central talking point in next year's mayoral election as Sheila Dixon has emerged as the top challenger to Mayor Scott. Dixon has criticized the mayor's leadership on issues like crime and public service, while Mayor Scott says choosing Dixon would be like choosing past failures over a brighter future.
I have to deal with the city on a regular basis with my clients, and I can see the dysfunction, not in one agency, but practically in every agency. And that is reflected of the leadership. You know, and it's reflected in who you hire, the people that work for you. I've never seen city government so dysfunctional as it is now.
Leadership that's failing the city is almost a laughable comment when my leadership has the city on pace to be under 300 homicides for the first time in 9 years. Investing in our education, opening rec centers, not closing them like the person he's endorsing did when she was mayor.
Well, a Goucher poll released last month showed Dixon with a lead over Mayor Scott in a hypothetical primary. She had 39% of voter support compared to 27% for him. 23% of voters say they would prefer another candidate, while 8% are undecided.
And political analyst John Deedy says it would be hard for another candidate to gain serious traction and support, considering the name recognition of Brandon Scott and Sheila Dixon.
Baltimore historically likes to elect names they know. Elected officials. I remember years ago, David Warnock poured thousands of dollars into a race for mayor and got 9% of the vote. And names you know means generally an elected leader in the community. So that's part of the problem. This election, in many ways, is like the rerun we're going to also have next year. Trump and Biden, where everyone's saying, come on, is there somebody else out there? And the truth is, there isn't anybody out there.
Deedy also said the drop in homicides could work in Mayor Scott's favor during the election if residents feel a stronger sense of safety.
Well, Fox 45 News will continue to follow the mayoral race in the coming months. You can find all of our coverage and previous reporting online at foxbaltimore.com.
Well, some cold weather coming overnight. Temperatures falling down through the 30s right now under some mainly clear skies, and that leads us to probably some of the chilliest weather that we've seen since March for tonight. Gets even colder for tomorrow night, down to 27 here in Baltimore. Hopefully you've drained out the exterior pipes and the hoses outside. I know the garden hoses can crack in this type of weather and explode, so keep that in mind. 27 here in Baltimore, 25 by tomorrow morning at Westminster. Going to be doing some scraping likely there. Temperatures 20s to near 30 on the eastern shore, and maybe some low and mid 20s at Frederick, right about 25 to 30 at Laurel and also at Gaithersburg. I'm going to let you know how much colder it's going to be for tomorrow night and when we could see some flurries around here. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock, a man pleads guilty to the murder of beloved Little Italy restaurant manager Chesley Patterson. The relief from the community and how his death reflects the heartbreak of Baltimore families. More than 10,000 vehicles have been stolen in Baltimore, and the year isn't even over. The message victims are now sending to thieves and city leaders. And county leaders are criticizing the cost of Maryland's blueprint for education. Project Baltimore looks into the complaints and the impact that could have on you, the taxpayer.
State lawmakers facing mounting pressure to scale back a massive increase in education spending known as the blueprint for Maryland's future.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the landmark legislation pumps billions of dollars into public education, but critics say it's crushing local budgets.
We're struggling with Kerwin.
Harford County Executive Bob Castley is sounding the alarm. And he's not alone.
The news isn't good. I mean, I cannot deal with a $40 million increase in my education budget next year.
Figure those things out, Kingston.
At issue is the future of public education in Maryland and how it's funded. In 2021, lawmakers passed the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, also called the Kerwin Plan. The law pumps $30 billion additional tax dollars into public education statewide over the first 10 years, and then $4 billion additional tax dollars every year after that. The plan, in part, increases teacher salaries, expands pre-K, and bolsters career and technology training. But when the bill was passed, the legislature did not pass a funding mechanism. In other words, Annapolis approved the largest education spending increase in state history without a way to pay for it. Now, county leaders like Castley are saying lawmakers must revisit the plan.
There's got to be some give and take. There's got to be a additional look at this thing, and people need to be a little more rational in how we approach this. But to throw tax increases in now when the economy is struggling, families are struggling, is the wrong way to go for Maryland and for Harford County.
Castley is just one of several county executives who have concerns over how the blueprint is being implemented. Earlier this month, the Maryland Association of Counties, or MACO, wrote a letter to Governor Wes Moore, Senate President Bill Ferguson, and Speaker of the House Adrian Jones, asking that the blueprint be adjusted. The letter specifically asks for a more comprehensive cost analysis so counties know exactly how much they have to spend. MACO also asks for increased state aid to renovate and construct pre-K facilities. When it comes to teacher pay, the letter requests more time to develop educator career ladders, which MACO calls one of the most unpredictable costs. But these concerns over funding should not come as a surprise. Many predicted this would happen.
There being 95 votes in the affirmative.
The blueprint was passed in 2021 when the COVID pandemic was crippling Maryland's economy. Republican Governor Larry Hogan and Democrats, including then Comptroller Peter Franchot, warned the legislature not to pass it.
It was a bad idea as far as timing, even though we all support education reform.
Less than 3 years after lawmakers passed a blueprint, we're hearing concerns from all over the state, including from the mayor of Baltimore.
It was a gut punch.
The president of the Carroll County Board of Education.
We're struggling.
And state senators.
I've got counties on the Eastern Shore that have said for the entire time since Kerwin has been passed that they cannot afford it.
Whether lawmakers plan to address the financial burdens of Kerwin remain to be seen. But earlier this year, Senate President Bill Ferguson was asked if lawmakers are open to changing the funding formula.
We're always back every year, and I think we're always open to make sure if the facts and data are there, we will address it.
I think I speak for all of our county executives in saying that our people can't deal with the financial impact that the Kerwin as it stands is placed upon our taxpayers and our citizens. So we've got to make adjustments, and I'm really hoping the General Assembly and make adjustments that are absolutely essential.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Ambush in the middle of the day, caught on camera in Landover. What we're learning about the tense exchange.
A Baltimore man who's had his car stolen twice sounds off on city leaders amid skyrocketing vehicle thefts. Mayor Scott's response and why he says the responsibility extends beyond police.
And perhaps going to be the coldest that we've been since back on February 4th, when we only had a high of 31 and a low the following night of 14. Look at that, a high of 37 tomorrow and maybe getting down to about 20 for tomorrow night. Ooh, boy. And yeah, that 20% chance of precipitation, that could be a flurry or two. And then it looks like it's chilly again on Wednesday before a gradual warm up towards the end of the week into the weekend. I'm tracking those flurries and also could be letting you know we could be reaching near 60 degrees. And if it comes to the expense of rain, my Weather Authority forecast.
You can already feel the chill out there as we look at the Inner Harbor. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Baltimore police say a 16-year-old was shot just after 4 o'clock this afternoon. It happened on Wildwood Parkway near Edmondson Avenue in West Baltimore. Police say they stopped a car fleeing the scene and found a 16-year-old with a leg wound. He was taken to the hospital and police are investigating.
An 18-year-old was shot in West Baltimore this morning. Happened along West Mosier Street near Bradish Avenue just after 3 a.m. Police say the victim was hit in the leg and the back. He was taken to the hospital. His condition not clear at this time. Anybody with information should contact Baltimore police.
Well, there was a deadly crash in Anne Arundel County. Police say a 54-year-old named Kevin Chris was hit crossing Ritchie Highway in Glen Burnie on Thanksgiving. Police say a 77-year-old man hit him. Police say Chris was wearing all black clothing and was not using a crosswalk at the time. The accident is under investigation.
A woman in Washington, D.C. is pleading for help after she says someone stole her new puppy right in front of her home. Take a look at this. Surveillance video shows Tiffany Worthy walking home from a walk with her puppy when two cars pull up in front of her. Worthy says a masked man, you see him right there, ran up the stairs, took her dog and ran away.
Said, "Give me your dog or I'm gonna kill you." Looked like he had something black, a weapon in his hand. He ran off laughing like it was like it was nothing, and and I'm pleading, for him to give me the dog back. No remorse.
The event bringing back painful memories for Worthy, who says her puppy was a gift from a friend after her old dog was killed in a flash flood just 3 months ago.
In Prince George's County, police are investigating a shooting in Landover. It was caught on camera, and a warning for you, the video is graphic. This is surveillance video showing at least 5 people dressed in dark clothing come out of a parked car and shoot at a man coming out of his house. Prince George's County police say that man was shot multiple times but is expected to be okay. Neighbors say bullets went through the window of a home and a parked car. Police are asking anyone with information to contact them. Coming up at 10:30, the man convicted of killing a Little Italy restaurant owner receives decades in prison. Fox 45 News shares the outpouring of support for Chesley Patterson.
New accounts of life in Hamas captivity. I'm Atrell Nashar with what family of the released hostages say they ate, where they slept, and the healing they have ahead of them.
We are following three big stories at 10:30. An extension of the truce in Israel as hostage exchanges continue. Tonight, some of the returning hostages describe what life has been like for the past few weeks.
A Baltimore resident has his car stolen twice, the second time caught on camera. The city's effort to deter thieves and why critics argue it's not working.
And the man who admitted to murdering popular Little Italy restaurant manager Chesley Patterson receives his sentence nearly 2 years after the shooting. And we begin there. Samuel Wise faces decades in prison for the January 2022 murder.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with the very latest. Keith?
Well, Karen and Mary, we're live outside the restaurant where Patterson worked. This latest development in this case comes as his family, his loved ones, approach the second anniversary of his murder. And tonight, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates calls this case another example of his administration's focus on holding violent offenders accountable. It's a shooting death that resonated with members of the restaurant community and residents in Little Italy. Chesley Patterson, the popular manager at the La Scala restaurant, murdered.
It was someone that everyone liked, and it was sad to hear of the situation.
Let there be peace on earth.
Tonight, perhaps some solace for those grieving over their loss. According to the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, Samuel Wise Jr. has pleaded guilty to killing Patterson. Police arrested Wise in April last year. Now his guilty plea and prison sentence. Abdel Kanani, a waiter at another restaurant near La Scala, with reaction.
He pleaded guilty. That's great. I'm happy to hear that because he has to pay for what he has done.
The judge sentenced Wise to 50 years in prison, followed by 3 years probation. Patterson was shot and killed in January 2022, just a few blocks from where he worked, during what police called a robbery spree. A surveillance camera at a corner store on Eastern Avenue captured the crime on video. Look here. In the video, obtained by Fox 45 News, Patterson is seen walking from his car. Then later, when he returned to his vehicle, a van pulls up. Prosecutors say it was Wise, seen jumping out of the front seat of that van. He ran up to Patterson's car, struggled with the man for a few seconds, then shot him once in the chest.
Let me walk with my brother.
After the murder, at a vigil for Patterson, loved ones, including Nino Germano, La Scala's owner, expressed anger and frustration over the killing.
Yes, I'm pissed off about Chesley getting killed for no reason. But the reason I'm pissed off about him because I know him, he was close to my heart. But there's a lot of good people get killed every day. But if you don't start doing something about that, it's never going to... It's pushing us out of the city.
On the guilty plea, Germano declined an on-camera interview, but did text this statement, saying simply, "Justice was made, but Chesley is still dead." Well, prosecutors say other evidence in this case included Wise's fingerprints recovered from that van seen in the video, and they say photos in his cell phone showing Wise wearing the exact attire that the shooter was recorded wearing. We're live now in Little Italy. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Baltimore City has seen several more people fall victim to crimes just going about their daily lives. On the same night Patterson was killed, Baltimore wife and mother Cheryl McCormick was shot and killed in a robbery turned deadly while helping a friend deliver for DoorDash. In September of last year, 17-year-old high school football player Jeremiah Brogdon was shot and killed during dismissal at Mervo High School. And that December, 19-year-old Jamira Burrell was shot and killed in northeast Baltimore. She was pregnant at the time. The baby did not survive.
The murder of innocent victims extends into this year. 23-year-old Maya Morton and her 2 children were killed in January while waiting for food at a carryout in Upton. In April, T-Mobile worker Fabian Sanchez Gonzalez was shot and killed when 2 teenagers robbed a store in Canton, according to police. The teens were charged with first-degree murder and also faced armed robbery charges in New Jersey. In September, Police say 26-year-old tech CEO Pavel Lapierre was murdered on the roof of her apartment building. Police say the suspect, Jason Billingsley, was also connected to a rape, arson, and attempted murder case a few days earlier.
There has to be accountability.
As Baltimore passes 10,000 car thefts just this year, residents impacted by the crisis say the city's new initiatives to tackle stolen vehicles aren't strong enough. One of the most recent victims saying his car was stolen with a wheel lock on it. Fox 45's Olivia Dance has his frustration.
When I looked out the window at 6 o'clock, my car was gone.
Over the weekend, John Floyd had his car stolen for the second time.
On my camera is 2 guys standing at my car, attempting to break in it. I had a steering wheel locking system on it. How they got through it, I do not know.
The thieves weren't deterred by his steering wheel lock and security cameras.
The criminals are emboldened. They don't care. They just don't.
Fox 45 News employee Jimmy Mathis also knows the struggle of having a car stolen.
So right before Thanksgiving last Sunday, my car, which is a Volkswagen Passat, was stolen a couple blocks from the station.
He called Baltimore police. They didn't show up, but they took a police report, and within just 2 hours after his car was stolen,
The vehicle was involved in an accident. They called me back and they told me that it would be at City Impound.
the police told Mathis that 3 juveniles had taken his car, and after visiting the City Impound lot, Mathis says his car is no longer drivable.
It's not just property theft. It's not. If you don't own your home, your car is the most valuable thing that you probably own. And it's not a luxury. It's the way that you get your kids to school, that you go to your job.
According to Baltimore police data, there has been 10.3 thousand auto thefts so far this year, including attempted auto thefts. Earlier this month, Mayor Brandon Scott and Police Commissioner Richard Worley announced new initiatives to address the auto theft crisis.
Our work really falls into 4 main buckets. 1, prevention. 2, deterrence. 3, enforcement. And 4, continued legal action against negligent manufacturers.
But victims of these thefts say the message to thieves needs to be stronger.
The city has a basic responsibility to protect its citizens. And part of that is their property.
The victims are left paying for the thieves' actions.
I'm the victim, but I'm being treated like the villain. I mean, these guys go around stealing these cars each and every day, tearing people's cars up, and we got to dig in our pockets for something that they done destructed. It's not right. And the city needs to do something.
I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Mayor Brandon Scott addressed the auto thefts in a statement this evening, saying his administration is wholeheartedly committed to addressing the issue. The mayor says as police arrest the same individuals for the same crimes, it's time for other parts of the justice system to do their part. Mayor Scott has called for a complete overhaul of the Department of Juvenile Services, but has not offered specifics about what changes he wants to see.
According to police, juveniles are responsible for 38% of stolen cars this year in Baltimore, but only 2/3 of those suspects are reported to the DJS, and only 5% end up serving time in a DJS facility. All others receive probation or have their charges postponed, withdrawn, or dismissed.
Baltimore police say a woman was carjacked by 2 people who pulled a weapon on her on Clipper Mill Road in Hamden. She was able to get a child out of the car before police say the suspects drove off. We'll keep you updated on this story as we learn more.
In Anne Arundel County, police say a woman was carjacked at gunpoint on Black Friday. It happened in the Costco parking lot near Arundel Mills Mall. Police say 2 men approached the woman carrying handguns and demanding she give them her keys. The suspects then drove off and have not been found. Anybody with information on their whereabouts asked to call Anne Arundel County Police. Well, Israel and Hamas have agreed to pause fighting in Gaza for an additional 2 days, giving time for the release of 20 more women and children held hostage by Hamas.
Israel has said it would extend the truce by 1 day for every 10 additional hostages released by Hamas, but pledges to continue its campaign to root out the terror group in Gaza continue.
Dozens of hostages on both sides have already been freed in the past few days. And as national correspondent Atra El-Nashar explains that they're starting to talk about what they went through.
As hostages are released, we're learning about the conditions they endured and still exist for those who remain in Hamas captivity.
Very little food, very little water. They came back very, very slim.
Ahal Besserai's teenage niece and nephew were released on Saturday. He says they were held in the room of a house with another woman. Family of other released hostages also say their meals were scarce, often just bread and rice. Meager nutrition, especially for the elderly and children. Like 9-year-old Emily Hand, seen here.
Lost a lot of weight from my face and body, but generally doing better than we expected.
Accounts of sleeping on rows of plastic chairs and sometimes waiting more than an hour to use a bathroom. In late October, 85-year-old Yocheved Lifshitz and 79-year-old Nurit Cooper were released. Hamas says due to their health, Lifshitz said while they were held, a doctor would visit them every few days with medication. But for 84-year-old Elma Avraham,
my mother did not deserve to come back like this.
Her daughter says she was severely medically neglected, left without necessary medication, returning home wounded and unconscious.
She arrived with a pulse of 40, with a body temperature of 28 degrees.
Equivalent to about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Then there's the mental anguish. Psychoanalyst Merav Roth says trauma of being held hostage is compounded by the violence of October 7th. Treatment, she says, can't wait.
That's what we do with post-traumatic stress disorder. We take care immediately because the first days are crucial.
As some of these hostages come home, they're learning for the first time their loved ones were killed back on October 7th or are still being held hostage by Hamas. In Washington, I'm Mayoral Nashar.
Well, the shooting of 3 Palestinian college students in Vermont is being investigated as a hate crime. Police say 48-year-old Jason Eaton opened fire on the students while they were going for a walk Thanksgiving Day. All 3 are hospitalized. Now, police arrested Eaton at his home. He pled not guilty in court today.
Upon knocking on one door, the ATF agents were greeted by a man who stepped out of the hall and stated something to the effect of, "I've been waiting for you."
Investigators say 2 of the victims were wearing traditional keffiyeh scarves at the time of the shooting. The Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee says they have reason to believe the men were targeted because of their ethnicity. Attorney General Merrick Garland and the FBI are investigating.
I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Coming up, we take a look at the problem some congressional Republicans have with the White House's proposal to send more money to secure the southern border.
And your hour-by-hour forecast dropping down into the 20s to right around 30 by morning. Some of the coldest air that we've seen since March around here. But we may dial it back even further in time. Maybe some of the coldest air since February. I'll let you know when that could get here. My Weather Authority forecast.